Okay. We are live. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. I am so sorry we are a little bit late. I was having some technical difficulties there, but we have arrived nonetheless. So thank you for joining us. Welcome our guest, Krystina Muahmmad, to the God Standard podcast. And I am your host, Sister Ebony X. And as you all know, well, if you don't know, the God Standard podcast, our aim is to have conversations with real people who, are using the teachings to be a God in their own respective lane, in their own respective right, and just bettering themselves and bettering their community. So, like I said, today we have Sister Krystina Muahmmad. Thank you for coming on. I'm going to do a quick little bio so you all can get to know her if you don't already. And then we're going to jump in and have this conversation. So, Krystina Muahmmad is a wife, a mother of two boys, and owner of Malika K Clothing, a brand emphasizing modest business and casual clothing for women. Krystina began making clothes at 10 years of age while assisting her mother, who is also a seamstress and maker of men's neckwear. After graduating from Delaware State University, Krystina began making dresses, pants, outfits for women and girls. Her consistency and increasing clientele culminated in the starting of Malika K Clothing in 2013. Krystina is also a trained doula and a communications consultant working with organizations in maternal and child health. These organizations include National Birth Equality Collaborative, now known as RH Impact, Her Institute, and Training Grounds, etc. Welcome. Thank you for coming on the podcast today. I appreciate your presence.
Thank you for having me. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. So just for our watching audience, if you all have any questions, feel free to, put them in the chat box and I will pose them to our guest. So let's just jump in. I know in your bio it says that your mother was a seamstress. Usually I ask
Yes.
people how they came into the nation, the teachings. Were you born into the nation?
Yes, ma'am. So my father registered at the age of 17
Okay.
when the Honorable Minister Farrakhan visited his high school in Chester, PA. And shortly thereafter, my mother registered, I want to say maybe like 4 years later. They were high school sweethearts. So, yeah, and they just got married and then, some years later started having children.
The rest is history. So,
Yes.
so you're officially my first nation baby on the podcast then.
Wow, nice.
Making
I
history.
always find that to be an interesting term, nation baby.
Right. What do you think about it?
In terms of being a nation baby,
Yeah, being an interesting
oh,
term.
it's kind of hard question to answer because I don't really know anything outside of that.
Right.
But what I would say is that I guess a lot of expectation, rightfully so. So
Right.
yes,
I get
yes.
that. I never thought of it in that way. For me, I'm just like, man, I wish I was a nation baby, but it's obviously always different. Like on the other side, like actually living that experience, right?
Yes, I mean, the thing is, we're all subjugated to the issues of the world,
Right.
even though, we have different ways that we grow up. We still, all of us have to overcome the struggle of the world. It's just that I think maybe there's a little dash of there's no ignorance is bliss for you.
Right.
So you kind of know that the impact of the decisions you're making, even though the world is still it's still very there and very alluring. So
Right.
um you know I guess that's why all of us still have to come through the same patterns of our parents. We still have to register, we still have to write those letters. So we're not exempt from that, so
Right.
but I will say, I guess it was great. I don't know anything outside of it,
Right.
but yes.
Understood. Yes, ma'am. Okay, so could you speak to like your experience growing up as like the daughter of a seamstress and what it was like? I don't know. Maybe you can speak to how much of your mother's business you saw, but I would assume, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that, you know, seeing her do her business, seeing women come in and out, like seeing different women, different shapes and sizes and whatnot, like how has that contributed to like your femininity, your womanhood, and how you are as a mother and wife?
Interesting. So, my mother was the bow tie lady, growing up, but my father actually taught her how to make bow ties. Although she knew how to sew because her mother was a seamstress.
Right,
So, her mother's from the South in Florida. So I think, that was just a time where women made clothes for their children. And then my mother learned, from her. What I will say is we used to call ourselves the Hebrew slaves because she would have us working, especially in preparation for Savior's Day. My brother and I would be on the iron. You know what I'm saying? We would be on the machine, we'd be working.
right,
So that was the pattern for years. But my mother was also a student captain. So she made a lot of clothes for a lot of sisters um, as they came into the ranks. So um, it's interesting because I never really thought about how that perhaps impacted me, just like seeing sisters come in and get
right,
fitted and her making clothes. But I know like she made a lot of clothing for me. We used to have pageants in Philadelphia. We had our junior MGT pageants and just ballroom dancing, and she would always make my gowns, always make my outfits for any of those like mosque related events. Um, so it was kind of just, it's so interesting because I actually never thought about it. It was kind of just, a part of the culture. I
right.
want to say because there was a lot of sisters too that were sewing. It wasn't just her.
Okay,
I want to say it really was a cultural thing. Like a lot of the sisters would make all, they had maybe like a core 5, 6, 7 sisters that would sew and would just be making all the juniors their garments and things like that. So but I do think part of my journey as well was being homeschooled, and that was a part of my learning was to make stuff. So
right,
I would make clothes for my Barbies and things like that. So that was kind of cool. But I think what really impacted me was just going through my own personal journey within Islam, and then wanting certain things to wear and not really feeling confident in finding those things.
right,
So I would make a good bit of my clothes just because I have such a bubbly personality. I love a lot of color and I love a lot of floral.
right,
And those aren't really common things that you find when you're
right,
ordering garments. So it just became like a habit, a hobby perhaps for me. And then I don't know if a lot of other sisters are like this. I used to be the type that didn't like to wear the same thing twice. Like if I took a picture in something, so I would always make something new every time we were going somewhere. So it
right,
didn't matter if it was like study group or the market. I had to make something new. So that was kind of just, I guess, my own journey through like fashion and clothing and just
right.
how I personally felt about how I showed up, I guess.
Right. I love that. I love the like the creativity, just being able to literally say like I don't see what I want in this store or reflected in anywhere that I can buy it, so I'm just going to like put it together and make it myself. Like I love that, and I feel like that for women in this day and age is like real freedom because well, you have two boys. But
Yes.
for me, I have two boys and two girls. But shopping for my daughters is just like sometimes I go into the stores and like my heart breaks because I'm just like, this is what they're making for
Right.
a 3 year old, like literal crop tops and booty shorts for a three
Exactly.
year old, like not even like a teenager size, like
They wear
a
the same
little
clothes we
tiny
wear.
size. I'm just like,
Right.
what is this? What's going on here? So that is very important, an important skill to have, like as we know, like we're taught that it's such an important skill, but I feel like in the world it's like you just take what you get, and I feel like I don't think everybody necessarily thinks about, okay, do I want to dress my children like this or do I want to dress like this, but it's just what's available kind of thing.
Right. 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 And I mean, there are a lot of interesting clothing you could wear. I know as someone that was an avid H&M shopper,
Right.
um, and Forever 21, I used to just make my pants tams and headpieces, and I would just deck it out with all different types of dresses and
Right.
blazers that I could pull from H&M and Forever 21. So I think what ends up happening at times is once you kind of change your perspective about clothing, your eye changes, you know?
Mm.
Like you now see things differently. Like you go into the store, you're like, oh yeah, I could do that, I could do this, I could do that.
Right.
So I think it just, it's like once you're in it, you start to see things differently. But for the girls, yeah, I don't know. That's a struggle because I
Right.
go in the girls' aisle sometimes, in like Target or whatever. And yeah, that's 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 gonna be a problem,
Right.
So I would say for moms, if you know basic sewing, it ain't nothing to make some pants,
Right.
and just get one of those dresses or just get some of those nice long sleeve dresses or short sleeve dresses and, make it match, make it do what it do, really.
Right. 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 Trust me. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to get into like the business side of it. And you kind of explained like how you started like your own business in terms of,
Mhm.
finding things to dress and making clothes for people. Um can you speak to, because I saw you this past Savior's Day and you had your booth, you had your
Yes.
whole setup.
Yes.
And I love that like your children were like around there just like playing at your feet. Like they were there, like
Yes.
you were like you were in business mode and mom mode. So can you speak to how your femininity and even creativity like contributes to how you do business?
Right. Well, I'll be remiss in saying this though, because a large part of how I view business and myself is primarily the relationship I have with my husband. Um, Really, because I guess you could say he makes it possible for me to even do that.
Right.
That's not even a thing for me to think about bringing my children along.
Right.
I mean, at some point, I think at the beginning when I first had a child, it did change my perspective on doing business because I've always been a stay-at-home mom
Right.
since day one. So I've always really had to figure out how to do things in the company of my children. And because you have children, you get a little creative and you're
Right.
you're
Right.
trying to like, and then sometimes you do get discouraged because you're like, your children are a distraction or they're always there. But I
Right.
think at some point I just kind of was like, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm a mother
Right.
and I shouldn't really have to, acquiesce that like that's
Right.
the reality. I'm a
Right.
mother. So I'm not going to just shy away from that. So even with any other work I do, it's like clear that my children are there. And the reality is I have to bring my children around because that's just what it is. Um
Right.
because I'm a homeschooling mom and I'm a stay-at-home mom. So but first thing I would say yes, the relationship I have with my husband because he has made it clear many times that if it's a stressful thing, it doesn't need to be done.
Right.
So if it's something that I feel like I have to, oh, I can't have my children, blah, blah, then why are you doing it?
Right.
Because I don't work hard so
Right.
that the both of us can be looking at each other stressed out,
Right.
So I think that little bit of freedom, that is not even a little bit, it's a lot, but that freedom really kind of eases the mind that like really you could do whatever you want, right?
Right.
Um, so yeah, I just open myself up to I could do what I want.
Right.
And also so many of us are moms. Like what are we supposed
Right.
to do about that, Um, and I enjoy my children and I enjoy the company of my children. It's not like always, you have children, like they don't always
Right.
fit in the way that you want them to. They're not always going to
Right.
behave the way that you want them to. But I think, especially having boys, I want them to see me do stuff that I'm passionate about and, not make a fuss about their presence, if that makes sense.
Right. No, that makes
So,
perfect sense.
yeah. So, any work I do, If I'm in meetings, you might hear my children in the background. They might show up. You might see them in it. But I think at this point in my life, I really want to pride myself in being a part of paving that way of women in business and mothers, and that we're mothers first. And if, what I have and what I do is valuable, then also, respect that I'm a mother as well. And that is the place that I am right now, is that is my top priority, is,
Right.
I'm gonna have my children with me. And I think it kind of eases the environment for other women, you know.
For sure.
So like that Savers Day, there were periods where there are lots of children
Right.
in
Right.
that booth, but I created the space so that they could feel comfortable. So it's important to me too, is to prioritize their comfort. So if I'm going to be doing something, I also have to make sure, like, while they're there, they're not stressed out, they feel relaxed. They could just be themselves, and I want other women to come along, and I want their children to feel safe and comfortable as well.
Right. I love that. I love that so much. And as the minister says, right? Like as a woman, your place isn't in the home, but your base is the home, right? So
Absolutely.
if our home is in disarray and our children are in disarray, then the business is not going to fall in line behind that. But if things are in order, then the business is just going to sit right on top. Not that it's going to be easy at every moment,
Oh,
but
for sure.
but it will work itself out, you know?
Right. Right.
Right.
And it typically does. I have a great time with my children. They are they are children.
Right,
So,
right, right.
but once you kind of just open yourself up to, like, okay, whatever I have to do, I have to do it in their company. It does, that whole stress about them being around, or the distraction of it, does kind of dwindle. You just
Right,
learn how to move around them.
right. And I think another thing that you mentioned is really important too, because as you mentioned, like your husband supports you in that, having boys, especially seeing you in that way and seeing that like their their existence was prioritized, like inshallah, when they grow up and they're fathers, then they'll
Right.
see it in a different way, right? Like,
Right, for sure. I mean, that's really what we're doing here, though, right? Like, our journey in Islam is all about the creation of a new mind. That new mind doesn't always exist within us, but through our actions and the things that we're doing and our execution of the teachings, we are creating that new mind within these children that we're producing. So, um, whatever my husband and I do is is going to have a direct effect on my sons and their journey through manhood, their journey through fatherhood and husbandhood. It won't look the same as my father, or as their father. So
absolutely.
it'll be a culmination of, like, just their expectations. So, whatever my husband's father did in his marriage, whatever my father did in his marriage, all of it that we bring is, a collective, and taking it to a new level. So, inshallah, my children's children, when we see them, inshallah, if I get to see
Right,
them
right,
be parents, I think that would be the exciting thing, to see how they lead their family, and just knowing just the pivotal part that we played in creating that new perspective about seeing parenthood.
right, 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 right. I love that, and that's like really spot on, and it kind of ties into my next question actually, because you don't only do the like seamstress. What would you call it? Seamstress?
Oh,
No, you don't
sewing,
only do
yes.
sewing, right? You do like birth work as well, right? So I wanted to ask, like, how do like being in the teachings and having a love for our people and know what we're trying to build and create, like how does that contribute to your professional endeavors and what you choose to be passionate about?
Right. So I think that whatever, I tend to lean towards whatever is happening in my life. Right. So I'm a woman. I like to wear clothes. I'm passionate about feeling and looking good.
Right,
So I put effort into, creating solutions for other women to feel comfortable and to look good. Right.
right,
Also, I'm a mother, and I'm having children. So what does that look like for me? And whatever I'm going through, how do I again aid in assisting other women have successful and beautiful journeys,
Right.
is kind of like where I place myself. Although I do perhaps work mainly in communications and storytelling, I do think that that's a powerful aspect too, because there are so many people who are doing wonderful work, but we just don't know about it because no
Right.
one's telling the story about it.
Yeah.
Or there's plenty of resources that many of us don't know about because no one's telling them that it's there.
Right.
So, I tend to think about, like, how do I give others access to information that has been pivotal for me?
Right.
Right.
Right. Right. Right. When you say communications, can you just elaborate on that a little bit? What exactly does that like entail?
Right. So it could be social media, it could be marketing, email marketing, it could be guerrilla on the ground marketing.
Right.
It's all about how are we getting information out, and strategically how are we getting information out,
Right.
and how are we telling the story of what we're doing.
Okay.
So that's, I like to say it's more like those creative solutions of, yes, telling the story and
Right.
getting people access to information.
Right. 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 Got it. Got it. Got it. Okay, so I want to get into birth work. That is my favorite. That is my favorite thing to talk about. Okay, health and wellness of mothers and babies.
Right.
Um, can you speak a little bit about like how you got into that? What sparked you? Well, you kind of said because you're a mom and that's what you're doing and you're helping women. But like, how
Right.
did that kind of unfold?
Right. So how did it happen is the
Right.
question. So basically how it happened for me is that my sister-in-law, my brother's wife, had some interests in maternal and child health. And my father, who worked with birth, anything health related, really, he was a health researcher and a writer. He connected us with a sister who is a midwife in the Nation of Islam. Her name is Sister Javon.
Okay.
So she was working with, I believe at the time, well, it's Mama Shafia, and their organization at the time was
Mm.
ICTC,
Yes. Yes.
I think, because I know they changed it
Yeah, they did.
to
But that's what it was.
NAABB, I believe. But she was doing a training in Oakland, and Sister Javon wanted to pull together, a group of sisters to take the training.
Right.
And my sister wanted to go. I wasn't really passionate about it. I wasn't thinking about it,
Right.
but she couldn't go by herself. She couldn't take this flight across country
Okay.
by herself. So, because she also had a 1 year old, and just a little context there, she had had a home birth, a natural home birth, and that was really pivotal for my family
Right.
because even I want to say just the culture in our city at that time, I didn't know of any sisters who were having home births or natural
Right.
births. So it was, a big thing for us that she, had this baby in my parents' home. And it was like this big thing. Like everybody was coming by the house. It was like a
Right.
very energetic experience, I will say.
Yes,
People were bringing food, and yeah, so she had this baby, and I think it changed the dynamic of how my family really saw birth. Or I would say for sure it changed the perspective that I how I saw birth, because I mean I really wasn't paying attention to anybody was having babies then
ma'am. Right.
anyway. But yes, I went to the training with my sister-in-law, and after the training, I would say, yeah, it definitely shifted a good bit of my perspective
Right.
about birth, because again, I really wasn't looking to be a part of that um department of thought, if you will.
Right.
So yes, it was I would say that kind of led me into this frame of mind I am, because I did go to school for communications, and
Right.
I was doing my sewing thing, and adding the birth in there because again, many times, I don't know if it was like this for you. I knew I would get married, but I never really thought about the whole process of having children until then.
Right.
Um So it definitely changed whatever thoughts I had about it being like this daunting, scary experience to like, wow, like this is a very like family oriented, like beautiful thing.
Right.
And I'm low key looking forward to it. So that's kind of like where I ended after that. So
Okay.
yes.
Okay. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah, for me, no, for me, ever since I was a child, I was like, so I saw my niece being born when
Oh
I was
wow.
13, and I was in the it was in the hospital with my older sister, and like the only way I could get in, I think they allowed one other person to be in, which was the dad.
Mhm.
And the only way I could get in was by like saying that I was like taking pictures. I was like the photographer. So like
Oh,
I said, I'm like,
neat.
I'm the photographer. And I was just like so interested in the whole entire process. I was like, from then I was kind of like blown away. So at that point, I kind of knew that I'm like, whenever I have babies, I know that
Right.
I wasn't gonna get an epidural. I knew that. I'm like, I didn't have any information. I didn't really know anything about anything, but I knew I wasn't gonna get an epidural. And I
Mhm.
think I was saying like, I'm gonna just take Tylenol or something like that.
Interesting. But you know, that's the mind of a 15-year-old. I'll just take some
So
Advil.
you could tell I knew nothing. Okay.
Right. Yes.
But no, I think it's beautiful that regardless of the pathway that we get there, because for me, I think in large part, like in large part as Black women especially, like
Mhm.
even if we don't like understand the whole even if we don't understand the whole like process of things, I think, not even though, but because
Mhm.
we don't understand the process of things, I think that contributes to like our anxiety around birth
For
and our
sure.
fear around it. And if we did understand it better, I don't think it would be as daunting of a thing to like kind of wrap our minds around, you know?
For
So
sure. And there's a
yeah,
lot of fear mongering about it as well,
of
right?
course,
Like
of course.
there's a lot. Oh my God. I mean, even like within the Nation of Islam, you could say there's some fear mongering about it in
Right,
terms
right,
of
right,
like you're coming close to death. This is true.
right,
This is, I guess you could say this is true, but
right,
is it deadly? It's like I
right,
just tend to think like your body is a transformer.
right,
If you watch Transformers or if you watch werewolf flicks, when they're changing, it
right,
doesn't always look great.
right,
And they don't look like they're having a good time, but
right.
their body is low key made to do it.
It
So
knows
you
what it's supposed
just,
to do.
right, you just ride with it
Right,
and, accept that that's what's happening to you.
right. It's
Right.
funny that you said that because that term kind of bothers me a lot. Not like bothers, yeah, it gives me an uneasy feeling, like the whole close to death thing. And how
Hmm.
I've like rationalized it is that the pain itself, like not that we are going close to death, but like, and I might be wrong, but not that we are going close to death, but like the pain that we're feeling is or could be akin to the feeling of death, like, you know what I mean? So I definitely think that we could use some like reframing around that a little bit, because
Right.
it's
Right.
so, I just made a post about this the other day. Like when we actually like do the dance with our body and allow our body to do what it's supposed to do, like
Hmm.
it doesn't make the pain go away. It can't ever do that, but it makes it so much more bearable. It makes it so much even spiritual in some senses, where we're just so connected to like our baby, to God, to the pain, to the opposite of the pain is the euphoria that comes with that too, right? So it's like
Right.
this little dance that if we just get in and dance, it's a little easier, you
Right. Right. Yes, absolutely. I would
know?
say, for me, what also helped me was hypnobirthing.
Mm,
So our student captain in New Orleans, who, well, first of all, she's a lot of things.
right,
Let's say
right,
that.
right,
She's a lot of things. She's she has worked in lactation and breastfeeding for like 20 years now. And she has an organization that provides lactation support. Um, on top of being a doula and many other things.
right.
But she is a hypnobirthing instructress.
Mm,
And I took her course, her hypnobirthing course. And I
right,
think I believe that, that really helped change a good deal of like how you even see it, because they change a lot of the language, right? So
Right.
instead of contractions, you're not having contractions, it's just like surges.
Right.
You
Right.
know, the muscles relax, you know, pulling, you know. So just changing the perspective of just some of those little key words that are scary,
Right.
and then how to cope in a situation. So like when you're having, you know, those contractions or those surges, like what do you do? Do you tense up, or do
Right.
you just sit back and allow it to take place and just breathe through it? So that really helped me too, because it did kind of change my way of thinking about pain. Like this is not
Right.
really painful, it's more so difficult.
Right.
And that's okay, because is having a baby supposed to be a walk in a park? I'm not
Right.
quite sure, but I don't think so.
Right. Right.
So but it's going to be difficult, you know, and to just allow your body to do what it's supposed to do and don't get in its way. And I
Right.
think a lot of that pain does come from us tensing, like, oh my God, it's so painful, it's happening, when really if we just relaxed and allowed it to pass, you know, it wouldn't have such a daunting effect on us, you know. So
Right. I
it
agree.
that was helpful.
I'm glad you said that. I also did hypnobirthing after
Neat.
my first, and I recommend that to everybody. Like I'm like, I will get you the book. Here you go. And
Yes.
I still visualize birth as like the flower and the balloon. Like it's imprinted on my brain. Like I can't unknow it, you know? So it definitely that reframing that you mentioned, that changing the words, changing the way you see it, like
Right.
really is a game changer for
Oh
sure.
yeah, it
For
was like you know what? After that, I was like, I could do this again.
sure.
It's not as scary
Right.
as you know I thought.
Right.
Because my first birth, I did plan for home birth, but it ended up being cesarean. And
Yes,
child,
sir.
that's a long story.
Right, right,
It's
right,
not really that long, but you know, it it was just one of those moments where you make plans and it doesn't happen. And
right, right.
after that, I just wasn't like that eager to have more children.
Got
I'm
it.
like, child, if I had to do this, if I had to do this, if I had to have major surgery,
Right.
it's a no for me.
Yes, a lot.
But after my second birth, I definitely was like, oh yeah, I could do this again. Like just the whole idea of it didn't feel as like traumatic.
Right, 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 right. I feel that. I feel that. Okay, so a lot of the talk, I guess, in the birth working community is, the risk of, maternal death, um and even infant death now, sometimes like in hospitals and stuff like that.
Mhm,
um can you speak to like the role, and you kind of touched on it as you were speaking about your sister, but
mhm.
can you maybe speak about like from a doula's perspective, like the role of the family and husbands in preventing those things,
Right. I mean, you know,
contributing to preventing those things? Sorry.
I will say, I will start off by saying that I am not the subject matter expert. Some of the girlies out there, they got the real,
Right, right,
you
right.
know, the real statistics and tea on it.
Yes,
But
sir.
what I will say is that it's not this mystery thing that's taking us out, you know? It's just because whatever we're experiencing, everyone else is experiencing, you know?
Right,
It's just that no one perhaps is paying attention or taking us serious,
right,
right? So there's that. So my thing is, the two things that I would say I tell moms is that number one, you know, the hospital is not a scary place, because a lot of times we make it very scary, like, oh, you're gonna go there, you're gonna die. Like, no, it's not. It's not that. You know, an OB is a surgeon, and that's just what that is. They're not really trained to do natural birth.
right.
They're not really trained to wait it out. You know, sometimes your birth could take 10 hours, sometimes it could be 5 hours, girl, sometimes it could be 24 plus.
Right,
You're the surgeon, that's not their profession to sit there and wait with you, you
right,
know. So if you don't have a real reason to be there, I would just not go, you know,
right.
because at the end of the day, they're surgeons, they're not really taught maternal care.
Mm,
And if you're going to get maternal care or, you know, prenatal care there, you can kind of get the sense of that, because there's not really much conversation that takes place, right? You go
right,
there 5 minutes. Okay, I saw you. Your vitals look great. Move along.
Right.
So, if you can find find someone else, find a midwife, go to a birth center, do a home birth, you know, find a situation that better fits into what you want to do if you're not planning to have a cesarean,
Right.
because that's just the nature of it. A lot happens in the hospital. There's hundreds, sometimes almost thousands of patients in the hospitals. They're short staff. And this just the whole obstetrics department. I mean, just through its inception here in America is really not taught to. It's not based on your care
Right.
or taking you serious. In fact, it's really based on the fact that you can handle anything.
Right.
So there's that. And then if you are in pain, be very, very, very frank that you are in pain, because I do believe that sometimes as Black women, we're not really honest with ourselves when we're in pain, because naturally the culture, and this is not just Black women, this is men as well. Like, the culture is like, you tough it out.
Right. Right.
Some
Right.
stuff you don't need to tough it out. I am in pain. I am hurting. I am scared, and make a trip about it. But I do think just having your family and having people paying attention. I know y'all can hear this child in the
That's
background.
okay.
It's totally okay. If it sound like he's in distress, he's not. He's okay. Just so y'all know, I'm not neglecting.
Yes, ma'am.
But having family there to pay attention to you, to really monitor you and watch you while you're going,
Right.
because some things you won't really be able to speak for. Like, if you really are in pain, sometimes you won't really be able to communicate that. So having your family really advocate and feel confident that they can advocate for themselves. It's okay. Can you get him, please? Okay. This is actually what it looks like
Right. Right.
during my work day. So, if you're curious, when I said I have my children around, this is
Right.
this is what it looks like.
Yes, ma'am.
Um yeah, having your family there to advocate for you and feel confident to advocate for you, and
Right.
knowing how to advocate. Because sometimes we go into the hospital, that's not the space to turn up and turn into the Hulk.
Right. Right. Right.
Sometimes you have to tell men, like, that's not where you want to Hulk out, because they're very quick to arrest
Right.
Black
Right.
men.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
how do you speak their language? You
Right.
know, if you're going to be in a space, you have to learn how to communicate in a way that they can understand you and,
Right.
respect what you're saying. Unfortunately, that's just the reality. If you want to be in those spaces, or just don't be in those spaces,
Right.
I'm all about avoiding the space. There are plenty other spaces that are created for us to have beautiful, luxurious births, instead of sterile rooms. So I would just say it's all about understanding the environment you're going into, and that's that environment.
Right.
It's not necessarily they're trying to kill you out the gate, but your care may not be top priority.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
that's okay, I
Right. Right. Right.
guess.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Yeah, I appreciate that. And don't worry, my children came in already asking for fruit, asking for watermelon.
Yes.
Um, all good. Okay, so last
Yeah.
question, real quick, and you kind of touched on it, but maybe if you could just elaborate. So, like, in terms of like being in the nation and the work that we're doing in bringing in a new world and
Mhm.
bringing in a new way of doing things, like how do you how do you think the way as mothers, like how we care for our children and how we take our health seriously and how we do business and stuff like that, like how does this all contribute to like the new world and the new way of doing things and the God standard that we've been given?
Wow, Sister Ebony, that's a lot. You just asking a question. Okay, where do I start? Hmm. I would say first, in terms of motherhood. I know, like, we've heard countless times about the importance of motherhood, right? And sometimes I think we get in these pockets where we're kind of like taking on rhetoric from the world about it being tiring and being consuming. And, we just have to be mindful of really keeping at the forefront why we perhaps are engaging in the journey of motherhood. And it is not the same, right?
Right.
So we should never really fall victim to, that ideology of mom life is difficult. Everything is difficult. There's difficulty in every great thing that you are doing,
Right.
whether it's business, a business venture, whether it is your personal health venture, you want to get in shape. That don't just happen. Even if you want to get surgery, honey, that's going to be difficult. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you got to get cut up, you got to wear stuff. Anything you're going to do is going to have some level of difficulty, but keeping at the forefront why we're engaged in it. And we're not just having children to have children. Like, we're having children to change a whole new frame of thought, you know,
Right.
build a whole new legacy of how people think and see life and see, parenthood, and see, marriage, see business. We're really creating new people.
Right.
And I think that when we go into it prioritizing that thought, it really does change the way you see your children, because you no longer see them as a burden. It's really a gift to have them around. And for them to see what you're doing and going through. And as they get older, you get inshallah, you get the privilege to see their minds and how they think about things early on, and you can
Right.
see that their perspectives are vastly different than how some of us perceive life and perceive things.
Right.
And I think that is just incredible.
Mhm.
So when it comes to motherhood, I try to keep that at the forefront. There's a reason why I have these children, and it is a gift, and to not fumble the gifts. And as it relates to business and everything else, it's just, at the end of the day, we're women. And, we're going through this journey within Islam, and we understand, or we should understand, that yes, we live in a patriarchal world. Yes, there's misogyny. Yes, there are things like that. But it is our job to lead the force that we don't accept that.
Right.
So at the end of the day, we're mothers, we're wives, whatever it is we're doing, that is who we are. And anything else that we're doing has to fall in alignment with that. So
Right.
if I'm doing business, yes, I'm going to do business that fits me as a woman, meaning I'm not going to be working like a man.
Right.
You're not going to make me feel guilty about it.
Right.
You know? And if you make me feel guilty about it, this is a space that I don't need to be in.
Right.
And, feeling confident to walk away from that space. And I think that's what I mentioned earlier when I talked about my husband, because, I think that when our men are present, they're giving us the confidence that, yeah, why are you doing that? If I
Right.
have to do it, why are you doing it? Walk away, you know,
Right.
being secure that we can just walk away. Like, I'm not participating in that if it's going to go against what I am supposed to be as a woman. And I'm not finna be, if I have to remove my children from the situation, or if I have to feel guilty about my children,
Right.
not that's not space that's good for me.
Right.
Um, you know, if it contradicts how I should move, as the most honorable Elijah Muhammad has taught us about, how we move in business, coming at night, whatever it is, that's not for me. It's not space for
Right.
me. So just, I think it's all about just living authentically to who you are. If you are a Muslim woman, and we have things and ways that govern how we behave and move, and anything outside of that is not where we need to be at.
Right. Right.
Yes,
Period.
ma'am. Period. Yes. and
I
and,
love
and stand on it, because
that. Right.
sometimes that is difficult to stand on it, to because sometimes we get into these spaces and we're thriving, and we feel in ourselves, and we start to release the head garment or whatever it is.
Right.
At the end of the day, if you're in a space and you don't feel confident that you could really just be, who Allah made you to be, you need
Right.
to exit stage left.
True. True. And I think that's the standard. Like, that's literally, that's the God standard. Like, if we're not striving for the standard or upholding it, then what is the point? Like, it's given to
Right.
us for a reason. It's given to us for our success. It's given to us for us to thrive and make this our
Exactly.
world. You know what I mean? So
Exactly. And the work that we're doing is changing the paradigm, right? So if you
absolutely.
think that the work that you're doing as a black woman, in not just in Islam, but just a black woman that's a mother, the work that you're doing is going to shift the paradigm as to how we see ourselves in business and how we do business,
Right.
how we prioritize ourselves, our health, how we prioritize our children, you know, I think that is worthy of whatever struggle we have to go through to do that. Because at the end of the day, do we want our daughters to have to, participate in a world where they can't be, confident in being a mother and
Mm,
still being able to accomplish things and do what their heart desire? Do we want to participate in that? Do we want them to be a part of that type of world?
right.
So if we don't, we got to go, we have to pave the way. And this is part of what we're doing.
Right. Absolutely. Beautifully said, beautifully put. I love that. I think that's a great way to end off the conversation.
Yes,
It's been a
ma'am.
pleasure. It's been a pleasure speaking with you
It has been
and
fantastic.
about this. Right, 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 right. So thank you so much. Thank you for all of our listeners. If you're watching this as a recording, I appreciate you. Thank you for listening, and may Allah continue to bless you. Peace.